Today I want to talk about three lenses that I think are special, exceptional in certain ways for certain things. These are my favorite lenses of all the Sony glass that exists. And there's a ton of it out there at this juncture. Let's get into it. So first, I know a lot of you kind of see me as a sports photographer, and that's what I used to do most of the time when I was younger, but now I do a lot of different kinds of photography. And one of the things I love to do is street photography. And the A7C Mark II is my go-to camera for everything other than sports. And really, in a way, I should say that the A7C Mark II is my favorite camera, as long as I'm not going to a game or shooting some kind of major action. But the 40mm 2.5 compact prime, it's a G lens. The 40mm is just a perfect focal length for tons and tons of things that I like to photograph. Now, this gets a little dark, but my mom got something called a glioblastoma 2.5 years ago, which is a terminal brain cancer. And I grew up in Chicago, that's where my mom and dad live. And so as soon as she got sick and had surgery and all that stuff, I began to make a trip up to Chicago every month for 5 to 7 days. I take care of their home, I visit with my mom and my dad. They're in different rooms in a facility. My mom is in bad shape at this juncture. She's in she just started her 4th month of hospice. Now, every single time I would fly up there to Chicago or drive up there, I take this backpack with me, a little knapsack, you know, socks, underwear, toiletries, and this. The 40mm 2.5 just gives me a lot of comfort, honestly. It's always with me when I visit my folks at the facility they're in. I make pictures of us having meals together, at least when my mom could do that. I take pictures of my family up there with it. I also like to do street photography, and sometimes when I'm up there in Chicago, when I'm coming or going, I'm coming on the train and I'm going downtown from O'Hare, and I'll take some time, I'll have to maybe wait an hour and a half for the train, and I'll shoot street photography, which is therapy for me. So this combination of lens and camera is my therapy device. When I go on a motorcycle trip, this is always with me, always. Why would I go crop sensor when I could use a full frame camera that's the same size? Or really it's smaller than even the Fujis and stuff that they make now. But the 40mm focal length is something special. And the 40mm focal length was something that was very popular back in the days when rangefinder cameras did not have interchangeable lenses. So if you were in the 1950s and you couldn't afford to buy a Leica and a bunch of glass, you probably had some type of Japanese or American camera that had a 35 or a 40mm lens. The 50mm lens as a focal length is really a standard lens. We call it standard, but technically a 50mm in my book is a telephoto. It compresses things, it has very narrow depth of field, and the camera manufacturers love it because it almost requires you to buy other lenses. You kind of see where I'm going there. But the 40mm is got less distortion than a 35, which doesn't have much distortion, but the 40 is like really primo. But it gives you a little bit more wide field of view than a 50. And at 2.5 aperture with a sensor that's in the A7C Mark II is a very fast lens. And then you have this incredible sensor that's really great in low light. So this is a photojournalistic machine, the combination of these two. Do I use the 40 2.5G on my A1s or my A9 IIIs? No. This is my comfort camera. It's my therapy camera. This is what I carry when I don't know if I'm going to take pictures or not, and I don't want to drag a bunch of heavy gear. But the 40mm is a very special focal length to me, and it's perfect for shooting across a table in a restaurant of my dad, who I take out to eat as much as I can. And so anyway, the 40 is really special to me, and this is a Very, very sharp lens. This is not a technical review, okay? This is not what this is. But I use the 40 millimeter 2.5 compact prime all the time in my life. And it's become a very important staple of my visits to Chicago and everywhere else I go. So I hope I've said enough about that. By the way, the lens shade is aftermarket. I'll put the link in the comment section below so you know what that is. But that shade makes this whole thing work. You can have a filter on it. There is a filter on it, and the shade goes over the filter, and it's metal, and it locks in great. So enough about that. The next lens that's really, really, really special to me is the 135 1.8. This lens is the quickest way to magic eye candy there is in the Sony system. There are a lot of beautiful lenses that are awesome, like the 24-1.4 G Master, the 50-1.2 G Master, the new 85-1.4 G Master Mark II. These are all wonderful lenses, but this one is special. And you might think, because I'm a sports guy, that I only use it for sports. I do not. I use it for all kinds of things. This is the best lens to use when you get bored shooting the 35 at a wedding reception. And you just kind of pop this on and start looking around. And pictures happen all the time. It's great. The 135 1.8 is a wonderful portrait lens. A lot of people found this out during COVID when we had to do headshots and we couldn't get close to people. We were wearing masks and stuff like that. But long before that, I was using this as a primary portrait lens. I now use this lens in conjunction and as a companion to the 85-1.4 G Master Mark II. But I really prefer to shoot the 135 whenever I can. It just knocks the smithereens out of black backgrounds. And so anytime I have a complicated background, no matter what the shoot I'm on, the 135 will clean it up. It's literally like the cleanup master. And virtually everything you look at through this lens, it's just eye candy. Everything you look at, it's great. And so if you don't own this lens, if you haven't rented this lens, if you've never shot this lens, boy, you need to. It is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of glass. And it's not a lens that I would ever go without, ever, until they make a replacement for this one that takes teleconverters. And I've said that enough on other videos. But the 135 is truly special. So if you have the trinity of zooms, for instance, the 12 to 24, the 24-70, the 7200, and that's the extent of your glass, this is a lens that you want to add. This really is. It truly has a different look entirely than everything else. Now, I'm going to give you one little sports analogy, and that is that the 7200 is a great lens for shooting sports, football on goal, when they're on the 5-yard line and you're in the back of the end zone waiting for which way the play is going to go. The most versatile lens to use definitely is the 7200 2.8 G Master Mark II. Lightweight, small, super fast autofocus, all those things. But it will not give you the eye candy quality that the 135 1.8 will. The 135 1.8 is something special. It's something beyond, and it is really not to be missed. So if you have a pretty heavy commitment to Sony and you have a bunch of glass, but you don't own this one, I cannot tell you enough in various ways how important this lens is. And if you trust me and buy one, you will not be disappointed. It is an incredible, incredible lens. And this lens always challenges me with my ownership of the 7200 2.8, because every time I know I should be using that lens, I want to use this one instead. And when I use the 85-1.4 G Master, even the 2 version, every time I put it on, I think, well, could I make this work with the 135? Because I know what it looks like and I know what it produces. This lens is just it's just an unbelievable asset for you and your work, whatever you do. Last is the sort of most recent of all these lenses is the 302.8 G Master. The 302.8 is not for everyone. I get that. If you already have a 7200 and the work you do is primarily wedding work or landscape, you probably don't need this lens. But if you shoot any kind of action at all, this is the top of the mountain, man. It is a breathtakingly fast lens to use. It's unbelievably sharp, and it will get you images with the 1.4 and the 2x converters that are just stunning. So this lens is super lightweight. It weighs almost nothing. It's incredible. This lens weighs the same amount as the original 7200 millimeter 2.8 GM lens. It's like science fiction that's real and in our hands right now. And again, this is not for everybody. You know, the 135 and the 40 are really for virtually any photographer. This one, I get and understand a lot of people aren't going to have any interest in this, but if you do work in telephoto beyond 200 millimeter, this thing is incredible. This lens has made such an impact on my work that once I got it, I sold my 400-2.8. I don't own a 400-2.8 anymore. And as a kind of a big time sports guy, that's a big statement. Now I do have a 600, and I love that because it's half of the 6 perfectly. So I use this, and it's light enough to use on a Black Rapid strap for football games, and that's what I do with it. But I cannot say enough good things about really all 3 of these lenses. The 40 millimeter is just the lightest weight possible way to work. It takes up no room. It doesn't look like much. The 40 millimeter on the A7C Mark II is what I think the Leica should have evolved into and never did. It's awesome. The 135, I think I've said my piece about that, but this lens, no matter what you photograph, this lens is not to be missed. And finally, the 300-2.8. I hope this has helped you. Maybe it's made you frustrated because these things cost money, but this one's only for $548. So there you go. Thanks for watching.